I'm glad you mentioned jump roping. I used to skip rope for warm up for boxing, and those typically like 3-minute rounds or something like that. But I'm glad you brought it up because skipping rope is something that obviously has a cardiovascular component. There's the conditioning component. There's timing, and it is kind of interesting, right? It's frustrating when you don't get it, especially when it whips you on the ear if you're using a proper rope. I'm just curious if you could just give us a quick skipping rope one-on-one. Do you like to see people jumping with both feet and toes? We'll link to a video if there was one and I missed it. Do you like to see people doing high knees? Do you like people basically like shuffling? You want to see people doing double dutch? What do you want to see people doing over time?
All of the above, maybe not the double dutch, but all of the above. I mean, I think that's the cool thing about it, right? Like once we sort of master the skill, because for all of us, that first jump with the 2 feet going together is a challenge because you just got to time that rope, you got to time your jump. And then we get bored, as we often do as humans. We get bored with what we can do and we want to take on new challenges. So then it becomes one leg at a time, or then it becomes side-to-side hops, right? And all of those things are beneficial, I believe, neurologically to enhancing the ability to do the skill as a whole, but also just because I'm such a believer in training in all three planes. So like just doing straight up and down versus now I can do frontal plane side-to-side motion, and then I can even do small little twists or corkscrews, we call them. It requires a different, you would know more better than I do, it requires different neurological patterns to be able to coordinate that because you're changing the orientation of your body in space. So it's not just that I'm changing the exercise, but I'm changing how my body interprets that exercise because of what's happening to my body in space. So I love, whatever people wind up doing, but I am amazed. There are people, I just started following this young woman on Instagram who is like, I'll give her a plug. I think it's like Anna Skips or something. And she is ridiculous. Like I watch her and I'm like mesmerized at what she can do with the rope. It's like, is an extremely athletic endeavor, believe, when it gets to be at that level, in the speed and the precision and the, I think one of the goals that you want to be able to have is to where you're feeling as if you're almost effortlessly dancing without a rope, like where you're just bouncing off of the ball of your foot. And it's an important skill to learn too, whether you go back to run or even jog, right? Just like, more casual running. Learning how to land is so important. One of the drills that people should try is like, try to jump on your heels. So just stand up, pull your toes off the ground, right? And just jump from your heels and land on your heels. You'll feel it in your jaw. You'll literally feel your jaw rattle when you land on your heels. There is no shock absorption capabilities through your heels. Meantime, a lot of people land on their heels a lot when they run. And your body's not built to absorb the forces like the ball of your foot could. It's literally built as a spring. And the foot is, to me, as a physical therapist, the foot has always been one of the most, you talk about having bad feet. I have flat feet. It looks like I got flippers if I took my shoes off. I'm wearing scuba fins. There is no adaptability of that foot to the surface. When it's completely caved and flattened like that, the job of the foot is to be adaptable. Well, there is some adaptability because it's so floppy, but at the same time, at some point, that critical juncture when you're going to then step through and you need to be able to push off, the foot has to actually changes in the midfoot itself to become a rigid lever, is what they call it. You're going from a mobile adapter to a rigid lever. That rigid lever literally locks up the mid-tarsal joint to become solid so that you can push off of it with leverage. If you lack that capability, all those stresses that are supposed to be borne by the foot go up into the ankle, into the knee, into the hip, into the low back. So learning how to land and start to train your body to experience ground reaction forces the right way is so critical to all other function and all other disability up the kinetic chain. And jumping rope is like one of the best ways to learn how to do that.
Great. I own a jump rope. I love doing it in the morning while I get sunlight in my eyes. It's actually a protocol I picked up from Tim Ferriss, who mentioned, because listeners of my podcast know I'm like a broken record with get sunlight in your eyes, even through cloud cover. It just sets your sleep rhythms and your waking rhythms, yada, yada, on and on. But sometimes it'd be kind of boring for people, and I want to get them off their phone. So jumping rope is also just a great way to wake up. So jumping rope can be the cardio workout, the 15 or 30 minutes.
Definitely. And there's sort of that hybrid that we were talking about before of like, you're not necessarily dropping down to the ground and doing burpees, but I just look at it as a more athletic endeavor because of the coordination involved than just simply walking or jogging.
Yeah, and it's not much of a equipment requirement.
No,
very minimal easy. Cost. You could even use a rope or something if you. Although
we even instruct people that they can use no rope and just pretend, and just move the arms, right? And just
truly zero cost.
You're never going to hit the rope, which is good, but at the same time, so you're never going to know if you're doing it wrong. But at least you can move through and get the same benefits through the feet.
I love it.